want to know which planet was causing your suffering? How about Earth?
Hey everyone, Brandplex here, back with a new Duels of Eden video. As you might be able to sound, wow, I sound way worse than I thought I did, but I'm kind of sick right now, so just gonna do a really crappy one-take video where I try and explain something that I will inevitably have to revisit at a later video when I'm feeling much better. But I want to make a video anyways, just because I figured people might find this interesting and helpful. So this video is going to be about how important verticality or off angles are in your deck. And so what do we mean by verticality? Verticality essentially just means being able to hit not horizontally. So stuff like barricade, stuff like step slash, stuff like paragon, these are all true verticality builds. So we can have our SK bot summon the laser turret, and then this will essentially act as the front line or the straight line person that's trying to hit us in a real game, right? So you can see that, let's say that I'm playing as a Saffron, playing as with minigun. Essentially, this third row represents the range that's really scary for me to hit. So how can I play around that? I can play around that by using spells like Paragon to hit, above them. I can use Step Slash to hit above them, same thing with Barricade. And the reason why that's important is because if you don't have spells like this, it's a lot easier for you to be caught by the straight line, right? So if I'm just trying to contest with Saffron W1, then what happens is that maybe sometimes I'll get the cancel, but other times I'll get hit, and then that's like the 50-50 guessing game. And that brings us to the next part of how important verticality or off angles are. If we're looking at something like SK, let's say that she is playing properly or playing very campy, and she has ran to the back of her board and she's spawned a trap right there. And so obviously this trap is really powerful because what it does, it prevents us from using spells like Thunder, it prevents us from using spells like Step Slash directly on top of her, it prevents us from, doing a lot of things that we'd like to do in a scenario where we have to be directly far away from somebody. And the way we play around that, obviously the shopkeeper can have traps both on both mill tiles, and the way we play around that is going to be with projectiles or just patience. And this kind of just ends up being an explanation of why you really need a well-rounded build, because obviously step spells, if your opponent's just camping like this with these two spells, let's say that you just like do this and then walk down, maybe the bot will play nice with me here. So like, let's say that this is how the board looks like, and the SK is like bouncing between here. Like, what other choice do I have but to wait out the traps and then try and attack her when the traps are down, or just try and use these projectiles to hit her from across the map? And this is obviously easier said than done, just because if you're playing someone like Celicy, and you're playing Celicy and you have cards like Push Slash, Step Slash, and Backstab, what ends up happening to you is that because of how the shopkeeper plays, it's really hard for you to approach, because if you walk up here, they walk down, you whiff, they walk down, all that good jazz. So the way you can actually play around that is pretty much just by, again, playing the 50-50 with your opponent. So you can go up here and try and walk down and cover that angle, do the same thing down here. And obviously that's really predictable because your opponent can count the top range. And so what you have to do there instead is you can utilize this funny little interaction called step dash or step dodge. You can see just now, you can see my character is dodging while I'm stepping forward. And so those of you who are quick on the draw might be able to guess that I can use this to traverse through this shopkeeper trap. And then that way you can surprise your opponent by hitting them with a combo that they might not expect. And that's obviously a very high level tactic to resolve something that's very easy to execute, but sometimes to beat the lame stuff you just have to use tactics that are very strong. And so yeah, I could see that I could like deal with my opponent that way. And then obviously same thing with the like straight line stuff. If my opponent is, doing the thing where they're camping one lane and that, again, you can just go from the bottom, you can step slash, walk up, and then cast a spell, and just get them out of there and do some damage to them. Obviously it's a very small trade, but if you're just trying to get rid of cards in a quote-unquote safe manner, you can always just go into like a really weird angle and go for that hit. And even though they might not fall for it, if you're trying to get to access to your better cards to deal with the camping player, then that's how you'd solve it. And let's say the final tip I have for these kind of camping lame styles is that you need to find the spells that you think will best deal with that sort of lane play style. And that essentially comes down to knowing your own deck. So for example, with my deck, the cards that deal best with camping styles is going to be Inverter, and it's going to be Step Slash Auto Slash, because what these spells let me do is that with the dodge mechanic, I can bypass the traps and combo them. Inverter is one of the best coverage pressure spells in the game, so I can just like spam them and continuously pressure them out. And obviously your deck won't be my deck. Like for example, I had this deck that I was looking out for somebody. In their case, their best anti-camp cards would be Step Mistletoe, Minigun. Sheer is actually not that good for camping because you can cap the back row. So you're just like cycling Sheer, Snow Cone, Frost Slash, Crossfire Breakout. Like there's all these spells that aren't good for dealing with campers or people that are like directly trying to counter you in a straight line. So what happens then is you're cycling for those spells that let you deal with the off angle. You're cycling for the spells that let you bypass the trap. You're cycling for the spells that really make your life easier, because in the end, like, you have to find the setup that will make the camper's life much more annoying. And unfortunately, there's no real easy solution to that. Maybe if you're playing a deck that's also very campy in nature, like let's say I'm playing this Reva deck. Obviously, this Reva deck won't combo that easily. This deck won't like necessarily be very consistent once my opponent knows how to run around the Mistletoe, Stinger, and Meteors. But then what I can do instead to adapt is to start throwing my I'll just cycle my Mistletoe. Like I don't expect these spells. I won't expect these spells to hit. So instead, I'll be relying on my W1, my Diagonal Beam, my North Wind to pressure my opponent, and then because I'm using these other spells to pressure them, eventually I can go for like a combo where I like throw my W1 into a shield throw, right? Or I can throw my W1 and use Mistletoe. I can use W2 to surprise them if I'm like hiding back here and just spamming them out. You just have to mind game your opponent if they're playing lame, sadly, and obviously if your opponent knows what's happening, they can adapt to that, and then that's what makes a game fun, is you guys adapting to each other, trying to counterplay the thing that annoys you. So yeah, sorry for the really rushed video. Again, I am feeling kind of sick, but I know that you guys have been looking for explanations for this. The TLDR I have is going to be, first, build a better deck. Your deck needs to have the ability to counter these type of camping playstyles. Otherwise, the deck's just not well-rounded enough, which isn't a big deal. But if your deck is like that, then, you know, you just have to learn how to adjust for that with your own play. And two is being comfortable with what anti-camping cards you have in your deck and cycling to do that. If you have bad anti-camp spells, just throw them out, like just burn them. It's totally fine just to whiff a spell because you need access to a better spell. And the third thing is, unfortunately, it will always take more skill to counter camping slash lame playstyles than just to play them. And obviously, your opponent who's playing that style can get better and better, and that's just the nature of the game. So hopefully this video was helpful. Again, this is like a literal singular take, so my thoughts might be all over the place, but hopefully I'll recover soon, and I'll be able to get back to you guys with better quality stuff. Anyways, have a good night or good day wherever you are, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.